one. God makes you that. Rather than giving every human being their own conscience, as He said, He makes
what's wrong with having your own conscience?
Is your conscience same as mine in everything?
Conscience.
Is your conscience same as mine in everything? Is his conscience, her conscience? Exactly. So our conscience can be different in terms of our upbringing, our education. Yeah. So if you left,
to act morally, no?
please, if you agree with me just now that we may have different understandings of reality based on our conscience, then how can you make our conscience the arbitrator of truth? Because one person may say something,
your
and
perception is what defines reality.
Okay, now
your
imagine,
is what guides your
imagine
action.
a Hindu comes along and says,
Are you
God,
listening to, you're not listening to me.
I'm telling you, from their conscience, God is a rat. God is everything, including the rat. And you and I say, no, God is not a rat. Or I say, God is not a rat, and God is not everything. Now, where is the truth? If the conscience of individual people are the arbitrator of the truth, now you tell me, one person says God is everything, including being a rat, and another person says God is not everything. Where lies the truth?
Well, that's not what he was asking me for.
No, I'm asking you now.
If I was the last prophet.
Now, I want to know, where is the truth? If conscience, our own thought processes, our own understanding, speculations, intellectual, endeavors are the arbitrator of truth.
Let me just go back to the point he's making before, because I feel like we've reached a conclusion here. Ultimately, you asked me if I was the last.
If God made you the last prophet,
if He made me
to convey the message,
He would make me the last prophet. Because I don't believe in the
Solomon,
last
I don't
prophet,
believe.
so
If
I'll
God,
never
in His wisdom,
yeah,
okay, do you believe God sent prophets and messengers?
yeah,
Why?
because ultimately human beings, it's a bewildering world, and there are people that help guide humanity. I believe. So
Let's understand this point. You believe God sent prophets and messengers when people could have individually, by their own selves, received guidance and live a life as God wants, or not?
no, through their own personal endeavor to enlighten their consciousness and develop a relationship with God, to find out the truth.
So you don't need a prophet and messenger?
No, I'm saying how they would become prophets.
No. If God's, you agree, remember, this is your stance. God sent prophets and messengers. Now, why do we need them in the first place? Why can now individually, now I'm using your arguments, why can people not individually know the truth about this world?
They can.
Yeah? So you don't need prophets and messengers.
Yeah,
So why did God send them in the first place?
You need prophets and messengers.
I don't understand why you need them when you can achieve the truth yourself.
You can take guidance from them.
No. If you can achieve the guidance yourself without the prophets and messengers, why were there need for prophets and messengers?
Ultimately, we need guidance, but it's not like you can't realize the truth on your own.
So you're agreeing with me. To achieve to the totality of the truth about who you are, where you come from, where you're going, what you're supposed to do, who is God and who's not, whether there's a day of judgment or not, whether there's heaven, hell or not, you cannot achieve all of this truth by your own self.
Why do you need to know about all of those details when you can just
if the reality
pray
is,
to God, be a good person,
look, if the
and
truth,
find salvation at the end of your life?
no, that's not the question.
What's wrong with that?
If the truth is there is a hell and there is a heaven.
Yeah, but if you're a good person, you don't need to worry about those things.
Wait. If the truth is, whatever I do determines where I end up, heaven and hell, then a sensible person like you and me should not just say, it doesn't matter. No. I would make sure that I don't want to end up in hell. You would make sure I don't want to help. Okay.
We disagree about the process behind ending up in hell. No,
if you know...
Let me talk, because you keep talking and you don't let me talk, so let me just...
Oh, I apologize, I don't let you talk.
Well,
that's
you
news to me.
Interrupting me when I try to...
Oh, I apologize. I keep interrupting to you. We had a nice conversation so far, and now you're coming up with, I don't let you talk, I don't interrupt. I do apologize. Please talk.
Like
please. 90% I talk. I mean, please carry on. Please talk.
I just want to finish.
Talk, and when you finish, just say I'm finished, and I can talk.
Okay, cool. So ultimately, when someone realizes the truth, they don't necessarily need to have a guide or something like that. You don't need a prophet necessarily, but the thing is, say what you're saying before, because it's so
Okay. My question would be, if we don't need prophets and messengers for our guidance, for the truth of reality,
Right.
I have two questions. Why have God created us? And is there heaven and hell a place of eternal punishment or eternal joy and bliss? I want to know the truth of this matter. How can I know that?
Oh yeah, this is it. So you don't need to worry about if you're a good person. So what we
That wasn't
disagree-
my question.
Yeah, okay, but I'm going to answer it in a roundabout way. So what I was going to say was before was we both have a fundamental disagreement, and I explained to you what it is. So you believe that the way to avoid going to hell is through following the Quran and the words of the Prophet Muhammad to achieve salvation, right, and to avoid going to hell. That's what you believe. Is that right? Do you agree with that?
Carry on. I'm not going to interrupt you. Carry on.
I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. Do you?
I explained that already to you, how we go to
Okay,
heaven and hell.
so that's what you believe, right? Yeah, I don't have any problem. Okay, so
I explained that already, not what you said now, but I've already explained.
okay, so anyway, so the fundamental difference in what you believe and what I believe is that I don't believe that you need to necessarily follow any scripture in particular or any prophet in particular to avoid going to hell and to go to heaven. I believe that through practicing morality and endeavouring to purify your conscience and to be a good person and to submit yourself to God. I believe that through that you can avoid going to hell and go to heaven. But the fundamental difference between what you believe and what I believe is that you believe that the only way to do that is through following the Quran. I believe you can take guidance from the Quran and other scriptures, and you can develop that you can do that process of purification within yourself. So that's the difference between where we come from. So yeah, I finished saying that.
In the day of judgment, if God puts you into hell, God forbid, and then you ask, why am I in hell for? And God gives you the reason. You did not follow the last prophet and the last messenger, in which I provided the guidance.
I don't think
What
God
would
would
be?
say that.
No, it's not about I don't think. That's the problem. You have made your own ego. That's called the ego.
Yeah.
The arbitrator.
But
One
you
moment.
think that-
Sorry.
you think that God is.
Sorry, I thought you were going to let me
Sorry,
speak now.
okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
If we make our own ego the arbitrator of the truth of the reality, I think God is going to put me in heaven. To God. No, God says. God has always sent prophets and messengers for them to be followed. Because the will of God that you are supposed to surrender is known and expressed through the prophets and messengers, His will. God's will is expressed through prophets and messengers in their teaching, in their scripture. God says, don't do this, do this. If you come along and say, my heart, my conscience tells me, people's heart and conscience changes. Now, do you know calling someone a bad thing about a homosexual person is a crime. Elsewhere, before, it was like, how can you be doing like that? It should be crime punishable by death. So some people's hearts are like this. How can you be so mean and rude to a homosexual individual? It's changed the perception totally. If someone considers now homosexuality is actually a despicable sin, they will say, how can you? You don't have a good heart and a good conscience. You see things how change? Because the society can change and mold your perception of the things and behaviors and attitudes. God sends what is acceptable and what is not. And that is why it is essential for us to follow the guidance from God. And if we were at the time of the prophets and messengers before, it was obligatory on us to follow them. Because now Islam through Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is last, it's obligatory on us to follow the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, follow the last book, the Quran. If you disagree, I just leave it there. So it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I apologize. You say what you have to say. You answer what I have to say. But I'm saying we're going to wrap this up. I appreciate.
Can I answer the question you asked?
I am saying you will. I will give you the opportunity, but I'm just saying it's a pleasure speaking to you. I learned something, how your particular thought processes are. We may disagree with each other, ultimately, do you agree we are all trying to go to heaven and avoid the punishment of God?
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave it to that.
No,
so
no,
now
no,
you can answer.
You asked me.
That's what I'm saying.
Do I
It's
believe?
it's your chance to speak.
Yes. Okay. So let me speak. So you asked me, do I think Hitler would go to heaven? You know, he believed he was doing he was following his conscience, or what he believed was the right thing by killing all the Jews. And you asked me whether I think that, you know, he would go to heaven. And of course I don't think he would go to heaven. But let me ask you this. So, you know, if you love someone, you know, and you have a good relationship with them, how do you know that you have a good relationship with them? You have a positive feeling towards the person, right? So it's like a love, right? It's like a affection that you have towards this person, and it feels like positive. It doesn't feel dark or evil or negative, right? Because you know that it's a positive, like it's love, right? It's like between yourself, like your relationship with your mother, for example. You know, it's like a loving relationship there.
Yes.
So you would never think, maybe this relationship, it's just, maybe it's not really good. Maybe it's just my ego is thinking that it's good because you know, I could be. This could really be an evil relationship, but you know. So what I'm saying is that through having a relationship with God, you know, not necessarily based on what any one scripture says, you can have this. You can develop a positive relationship with God outside of religion. You can develop an affection towards God, and I feel like He reciprocates.
Which God? God has a son, or God who just have a son?
No, the Supreme Creator.
Does the Supreme Creator have a son, or does he have not a son?
No, I don't know.
It's important for us to know, because
I
when you
don't know.
say you can follow any religion, so now some
Ask God.
religions say,
Ask God.
I
don't
did,
know.
and God said he doesn't have a son. So
Okay.
now which one are you going to follow? The one which says God has a son,
What,
or
it's
the
just-
one which says God doesn't?
There's just two.
No, I'm just giving you two examples.
Well,
of-
there's not two examples.
Look,
There's many religions.
when
I-
God
I
has a
don't
son or not, there's only two options. He either has a son or doesn't have a son.
know. Really? I thought there was many religions. I didn't realize.
So, in terms of having a son, how many options do you have? God has a son, God doesn't have a son. Is there a third?
Well, what's this? I don't understand. Why are you bringing?
I just gave you a concept of God, in which God has children. So either God has children, or God doesn't have children. Do you have a third option here?
No.
Good. Within these two options, which is the truth?
I don't know.
Right. So do you want to know?
No what? Whether he? No, I don't really care.
Okay, fine.
It doesn't
That's why I'm
affect-
saying, you know,
No,
this
listen,
discussion
I'll
is
explain
coming
why.
to an
No, I'll
end.
explain why. Because it doesn't affect my relationship with God. It's just a detail that's from some religion. If you tell me he has a son, what difference does it make to me? If you tell me he doesn't have a son, what difference does it make to me?
Shall I tell you
None
something?
whatsoever.
Shall I tell you
None
something?
whatsoever.
Shall I tell you
It doesn't
something?
affect how I feel.
Fine,
about
it
God.
may not affect you, right?
So,
But the one who we ascribe falsehood to, what if this God, the Supreme Almighty, doesn't appreciate people ascribing partners to him, calling him a rat, calling him a dog, calling him a pig, calling him a man? What if he doesn't like that? He says,
what if he
What-
doesn't like
one moment, one moment,
killing
one moment.
animals for,
Sorry, one-
for, our own
one
greedy-
moment, remember,
That's a good
one
question
moment.
as well.
Remember what you said. It doesn't affect you, it may not affect you. But what if the God that you believe in
Yeah.
doesn't appreciate that someone calls him a rat or a half elephant, half man God, or calls him a man, or that you can kill him, or he has a son or a daughter? What if he doesn't appreciate? Do you think he's going to be happy with you?
I'll ask the same question to you. I don't know the answer.
I'm going. Remember,
I don't
you
know.
said you don't care.
No.
In this belief system, when you don't care and you go in the day of judgment, when you're saying God should be happy with me because I didn't care whether he was a rat or not.
The thing is, I don't have any conceptions like that in my mind about God. So how can I offend God? I just have a
No,
relationship.
no,
with
you
God.
and
So-
someone else like you says, I think God is a
Someone else-
rat.
What do you mean? No one else like
Wait,
me
wait,
says
wait,
that.
wait.
I've never met
You
anyone.
have a concept in which God has no like this. Imagine someone takes your teaching and says, I have a concept of God. God is a rat.
No, that's not my.
A
teaching.
mouse.
No, sorry, that's not my.
Sorry. Your teaching is, whatever you believe from your conscience, think about who God is, what God is, it's okay. As long as you take the positive vibe from it, it's okay. Someone takes a positive vibe, this feeling, that God is a rat, because they love rats so much. He says, God is a rat, we should worship rats. And then they end up in the day of judgment and saying, God should be happy with me because I called him a rat and he was a rat. Seriously, we need to start rethink the way we think about God.
Question. If someone believes a rat is, say they have a pet rat, and they believe that this rat is God, like an incarnation of God, and they have such a devotional relationship to this rat, that it's a pet rat, so much so that they genuinely worship it every day. They worship it, like they bow to it every day as if it's God. Do you think that God would not be merciful to this person and give them salvation over the fake religious person who goes to the mosque 5 times a day and prays, but doesn't really have any love for God in their heart? Do you think God will not be merciful on this person who loves God to the,
Is
even
God
though
just?
they're confused?
Is God just?
Yes,
Yeah?
of course.
Good. If you believe God is just, is he going to treat the good and the wicked the same?
No,
Has he defined what is good and what is wicked, what is bad?
I don't know. In terms of like general things, we should inquire from our conscience what's appropriate according to time and circumstance.
God left people wondering, knowing what is good and what is bad, and expects people to follow the good by their own conscience, who can then disagree what is good and what is bad.
In many scriptures, in all religions,
Hitler might think killing the Jewish people is good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in every single religion, there are certain exceptions to every rule. No? Is this
Do
not
you
true?
think?
Let me
Do you
give you an
think
example.
killing the Jewish people
in Hinduism.
by Hitler is a good thing?
No.
What if Hitler thought it was good, and he expects a reward from God? And what if God, like you believe God is just, considers this is evil, and God punishes him, but he thought it was good?
But he's not a religious person anyway, so.
I'm giving you an example from history. A man that has committed this kind of atrocity, you can use that as an example. This is a prime example of what is good and what is bad. Hitler thinks this is good. Kill them all. Wipe them off the face of the earth. That's his particular ideology, right?
Yeah.
So he should be rewarded for it. God should be happy with him. But you're saying no. He will end up being punished. But he thought he will end up being rewarded. So think about yourself. The gambling that you're playing, that you think whatever I do, whatever I follow, I am expecting a reward from God and God would be happy with me. When you know from examples elsewhere, it may be the opposite. Whatever you believe, whatever you have ideological standpoint, it may be earns God's displeasure and his anger and his wrath. And you can then not just have an excuse. I didn't know God. You didn't tell me. God tells us in his last revelation. You will not have an excuse. One of the reasons, let me tell you, the prophets and messengers came. They came as warners and giving good tidings. They are the ones who are the warn of the consequence that awaits if you do these things, and they give glad tidings of the things that awaits for you in good pleasure and happiness and joy and tranquility and bliss if you do follow. And they also show you how to do that. They also become what we call a reason where your excuse will be no longer acceptable. They will remove the excuses saying, I didn't know, you didn't tell me, I was not aware. So when you end up knowing that God sent prophets and messenger, he sent the Quran, he sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he sent you this guidance, he told you do's and don'ts, and you end up in the day of judgment saying, I didn't care. Are you be able to justify your stance then?
Where's the proof that
If that was the case, do you think you have sufficient reasons to have an excuse? You don't even have an excuse in front of me, let alone the Most High.
Ultimately, God knows our heart, so he knows where the.
That's why he gave the guidance. That's why he sent prophets and messengers, because he knows our heart. Our hearts can be corrupted, and it's corruptible. He sends guidance, infallible guidance, through the prophets and messengers as our guidance. Do's and don'ts.
What's the proof Islam is from God?
Why are there
We
so
talked
many
about it already.
why
You're
are
too
there
late,
so-
and I'm not interested in entertaining you.
Why are there so many religions that believe that they are from God?
These religions that is now we see, originally, they're all from God, the teaching from God. God sent Islam, the pure submission and surrender, to all nations. Not a nation has passed, God tells us, that He did not send an honor to them. But what has happened throughout history is people started corrupting it, adulterating it, tampering it, going away from the message. And what is left with some remnants of the truth with falsehood added to it. And that is the reason why sometimes a particular nation has more than one prophet and a messenger.
So how do
Remind
you know
them back again of the
900
message
years
that was
of
sent before.
Islam, how do you know this hasn't happened in the years of Islam that's existed?
That is why you have to examine the Quran. That is the point we're making. The Quran has been preserved, and the Quran has already said you cannot imitate it. So one can have assurance that this book cannot be other than from God, and this book is exactly what the Prophet taught and he preached, and he gave guidance from. Then we can say, yes, I am following the guidance that God gave in the last of His guidance through this Prophet and Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We can then be assured. That's how the tranquility in the heart comes. The conviction and the certainty comes from that knowledge. And this is why when we surrender to Allah in Islam, do you know, it's actually quite interesting way. We don't say we believe and we disbelieve. We say La ilaha illallah. There are nothing worthy of worship. No deity, no God worthy of worship except the one and only Allah. So we start by what? Rejecting everything of the creation, rejecting everything that is not worthy of worship. All of the things that people come across, man, woman, tree, flag, tripods, your glasses, everything, nothing is worthy of worship
God created everything.
except
Why
the one who is the creator of all things.
these are His creations, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
auspicious? Like, isn't it holy?
Yeah. So
Isn't the creation holy? Because it's God's creation, no?
no, creation is not worthy of worship. The creator is. The one who is the giver of life, God, is worthy of worship. The one who guides and nourishes and sustains and protects and maintains the universe is worthy of worship. Not that tripod which human beings transform from other materials that God created.
He does it through the creation, no? Through the trees, they give us oxygen, through the sun, they give us warmth and things like that. So
Yeah, so the one who gave that tree for your sustenance is the one worthy of worship, not that tree.
but do we not respect the tree as well?
Of course you do, but respect and worship is two different things. Worship, it's giving all the right and the glory and the honor and the respect, everything, all of your heart's contents, your love, that's worship. But if you give that to a football star or a pop star or a musician or a dancer, then you have committed what we call an unjust act against God, because God is the one who's the worthy of worship. Imagine you work for a company. My last example. You work for a company, and the company that employed you expects you to do their work, come to work on time, yeah, rather than late every day, do the job you're supposed to do based on your job description. If you want to do more, that's good, it's a bonus, but at least do what you're supposed to do, what you've been contracted to do. And at the end of the day, they have guaranteed or promised or made a contract, they will give you the wages and the salary. Now imagine, you've been hired by that company, but you do the works of the rival company or someone else. Do their works, everything else, everything that goes against this company's interest. And at the end, you expect a wages and salary from this company that appointed you when you do someone else's job? Even in this world, you would not do that. You will say, why am I expecting this salary?
When did God show us the
Yeah.
contract to
So
sign?
if God created you, and you know that God created you, no one else did, and yet instead of worshiping this God, you worship someone else. Don't expect God to reward you with heaven.
Thing is, would you agree that in most religions they believe in that God has the same attributes? So like God is omnipotent, all powerful, omnipresent, like he exists in all hearts or all souls, right? No.
As I said,
You don't believe that
we don't
God
believe
exists?
God.
He doesn't exist inside your heart or your soul.
Look, when this universe was not here, where was God?
In his eternal abode.
Right. So when God created the universe, where did He create it?
wherever he chose to. I don't know.
In him?
I don't know. I'm not,
So there are beliefs like that. There are pantheistic beliefs and other beliefs or beliefs God created within himself. We believe God created the creation external to him. Creation is not part of God.
Okay,
Yeah? So those people who believe God is everywhere means what? The creation is inside God. God created inside him. What does it make? Does it make sense? God creates inside him. He's already everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. So,
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So
let's move on to another attribute of God. So he might not be everywhere, but he's all powerful, right? So, and also, does he know everything? Would you say he knows?
he's all knowledgeable.
So he knows everything. He
Yeah.
knows what's going on in this world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at least those two, like most religions agree, right, that he has those attributes. That he's all powerful and all knowledgeable, right? So in my philosophy, what I would say is that because he is all knowledgeable and all powerful, he knows what's in our heart. He knows if we're good or bad. So, and if you study, sorry. If you study the fundamentals of all religions, if you study the fundamentals of all religions, you'll learn those truths, right, about God. You know, these are the aspects that seem to be universal across religions, right?
That's what remains of the truth from God, as I said.
So
all religion was initially Islam.
So the attributes of God are the same in most religions, right?
Not necessarily, but there are a lot of similarities still remaining.
Yeah. So what I would say is that if you study religion to that extent and you understand the qualities of God, you know, to a fair degree, I think through that you can develop a relationship with God, and through knowing that He is all powerful and all knowledgeable, you'll understand that He knows what's in your heart. And so if you know that He knows what's in your heart, you'll try to not upset Him, because He knows what you're doing all the time. He knows what you're thinking all the time. And if you want to maintain a good relationship with Him, you wouldn't want to upset God, because He is your creator, your father. You know, it's like you said about your relationship with your mother. So for me, this is what God and religion ultimately is. That's what I feel true religion is. Anyway. So
Do you believe God communicated to us?
Communicated to us?
Yeah, in the past, through prophets and messengers. As you said earlier on,
yeah,
of course you do.
God communicates to people all the time.
Okay. What did He say who you should worship?
Him.
Him alone or with partners?
Him alone, I think. Yeah.
That's what Islam says. Worship God alone.
You're right, that's what I believe.
Yeah, but if you now worship from another concept somewhere else, why do you need to go when God already sent clarifications of the errors and mistakes that are corrupt in His religion that He provided for people?
God knows what's in your heart, so
that's why He gave the last message with clarification. That people's heart needs to come clean. And God says, this is how قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. I said earlier, successful are the ones who have purified their heart. That means her heart needs purification. Coming back to what I said, jihad al-nafs, the purification of the soul, the struggle of the soul to purify yourself. Islam, with this last message, does that. At least try to come with this mind and approach the Quran. Okay, what was your name?
Felix.
Felix, it's a pleasure speaking to you. If I have offended you in any way or shape, I do apologize. And I didn't mean to say something like this, but this is how I feel. I'm not able to entertain a conversation with you. But there's nothing personal. Because we have spoken in the past, and I've come to a point where it's like a brick wall.
Basically,
yeah?
he
Mansur.
says things.
Okay, pleasure speaking to you. You take care. Okay, thank you.